Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you all here with us today. My name is Jenna, and I am the event marketing and alumni specialist here at Reactor. At Reactor, we have a portfolio of transformational coding boot camps that prepare you to become a full stack software engineer. We are very excited to have you all here with us, and here to meet some of our awesome alumni today. We do host info sessions for our programs on a weekly basis that cover an in-depth breakdown of the program structure and outcomes, as well as a walkthrough of the application process. So I'll be sure to post any links to info sessions in the chat. Before we get started on the event, just a few quick housekeeping notes for our time together today. During this event, we'll be unable to take you off mute to ask our panelists questions. So please be sure to use that Q&A feature that you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit any questions that you have. Feel free to send in anything that you're thinking of throughout the entire event, and we'll be sure to toss them over to our panelists when we open that part of the event. Also, in this event, sometimes we may not be able to answer every question that comes in, either due to the allotted time or if it's a bit off topic from the kind of alumni and student perspective. So if there's anything that we're unable to answer during the event, our contact information will be listed at the end of the presentation and posted in the chat. This event, like I said, is being recorded. So you will receive a copy of the presentation after the event in the next coming days, and any resources that are shared will be passed along with you as well. I'm really thrilled that we have some amazing Hack Reactor alumni here with us today, Jason, Eric, and Robert. Before I pass the mic over to our alumni to introduce themselves, I am going to throw it over to Jeff Pryor, who will just give a quick overview of our intermediate program.
Team, good to be here with everybody. Good to see some familiar faces and names. My name's Jeff. I'm helping with our enrollment for everyone who is going through into this journey to our intermediate program. We just want to give you a baseline overview as you may be looking at different programs and kind of why us. We want to give you that understanding as we see our program structure here. So the program itself is divided into two halves, the junior phase and the senior phase. You'll have a technical assessment between those two phases, and you'll need to pass that in order to move forward through the next assessment. And just ensure that you've absorbed everything that you've learned through the junior phase and can carry it forward through that senior phase. Next slide. Starting with your journey here with us, after you've passed that TAA, you are going to work through around 90 hours of curriculum, which is going to help you build a strong foundation in JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and a lot more. This pre-course body of work will ensure that all students enter on the same page, feeling confident and ready to start, and you'll be on an equal footing as your peers. Next slide. After the pre-course, you'll jump into day one with us, weeks 1 through 5. As you can see on the slide, you'll be learning exciting things like computer science fundamentals, full stack JavaScript. You'll be pair programming with your peers, and you'll be working through many real world problems. In terms of fundamentals, you'll be learning how to think like a software engineer. You'll learn what it means to write really good code, how to communicate effectively with others on the industry who both may be technical or non-technical. And you'll also dive into data structures during that junior phase, which is always exciting. In terms of full stack JavaScript, you'll be working through many realistic code bases that you can see here on the slide. Then, after the technical assessment at the midway point through the program, you'll move into the senior phase, week 6 through 12. During that phase, you'll focus on bringing everything you've learned through the first half of the program, that junior phase, bringing it into the senior phase, completing build out of applications and learning industry's best practices. Additionally, you'll get into team projects at this point, which is really exciting. And new to this program is the artificial intelligence AI tool named GitHub Copilot. You'll use this towards the end of your program. We believe that AI-powered tools are going to increase productivity, but at the end of the day, you'll still have to understand how to code. We'll still need to maintain and understand the code. If we don't feel comfortable knowing the effect of the code, then we won't feel comfortable committing to the code. AI provides productivity enhancement tools as opposed to replacement for software developers. By the end of the program, after we've confirmed your proficiency in coding, you'll be ready to use GitHub Copilot, the leading generative AI tool for programming. You'll learn how to use it, and then we'll put it into practice during our final project. Our grads are going to be best positioned in the marketplace with this addition to the curriculum. All right. Taking a look ahead as we're heading towards our March 24th cohort, there are a few deadlines to keep in mind. The most important is going to be our technical admissions assessment deadline with that February 24th date. But if you're looking at a cohort sooner rather than later, we recommend you listen to our wonderful alumni panel and then make your decision. And we'll be happy to answer any questions at any information sessions we have throughout the week. Tuesday is our intermediate info session, and Thursday is our beginner level. So, Jenna, over to you to introduce our panel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And as I said, during this event, I'll post the links for those info sessions in the chat. They just go a bit more in depth about the program application process than what Jeff shared. So thank you so much, Jeff. Now, like I said, really why we're all here is we have some amazing alumni that are here to share their experience and kind of their stories. So I will pass the mic to them to introduce themselves. We'll just go ahead and start with you, Jason, and then we'll move down the slide that we see here. You can pass it to Eric, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Hey, everyone. My name is Jason Wesson. I'm a software engineer, as the screen says, at 2U, more specifically on a website called edX.org, which is most known for its Harvard CS50 course and a bunch of other courses from universities. And I also realized, was there other things to actually mention other than just my background?
No, I mean, I was going to say maybe like when you did the program,
Oh, yeah.
where you are
Nice.
now, if you want to share where you're located.
For sure. Yeah. So I went through the program. I actually signed up. I just checked my email right now. I signed up. I did my first application for Hack Reactor on January 20th, maybe. But it was actually, I think, around today, 4 years ago, that I had first gone through the process of, like, I think attending a alumni panel like this one with completely different people. But it's kind of weird to realize that that's 4 years from now. And so now I'm living in Mexico City. I had moved here. I went through the program when I was living in Austin. And one other tidbit is that prior to this, I was a kindergarten to 8th grade teacher, and for my first career, and I was doing that for 8 years, and then switched to this. Oh, and Eric, go for it.
Thank you, Jason. Great to see you again. I saw you at the last panel. My name is Eric Roth. I am a global support engineer 1 at CodeSignal. CodeSignal is a company that provides an interface and assessment for technical recruitment processes, and we work with companies like Uber and Capital One to help hire technical roles for those companies. It's also expanding. It's a company that's got about 80 to 90 employees right now. It's a startup that's sort of lean and growing. And I did the program, I did Hack Reactor a year ago. So exactly a year ago, I think, is about when I started. I had been a writer and then also had admin jobs to kind of, piece of writing life together. And my wife was pregnant and she was also a writer, and there was a writer's strike. And so one of us had to maybe get one egg out of the basket. So I quit my job and did the boot camp, and then was hired at Hack Reactor, I want to say maybe 4 to 6 months ago. So I went through the program, I did the seership, and here I am. I love this program so much. I think it just provides so much strong foundation, and I feel very grateful towards it. I'm based in LA, and right now, because of the fires, We are in Tucson with my family. So yeah, and then over to you, Robert.
Thanks, Eric. I'm Robert Potter. I actually went through the program just over 7 or 8 weeks ago. Graduated, and now I have the privilege of being a SEER, which is a software engineering immersive resident. So I get to act as a mentor to students going through the program, help them work out some of the intricacies and complexities of learning so many new coding languages all at the same time. It's a really, really awesome job, good position. Love the idea of paying it forward. So appreciative of Galvanize for that. Yeah, and I'm in Indianapolis, so I'm a little newer compared to Eric and Jason, but just like Eric, I want to reiterate just how grateful I am for the program because it does really set you up for success, and it's awesome.
All righty, awesome. Thank you all so much. Eric, we're glad to hear that you're safe from the fires. And again, yeah, thank you all for giving us some of your time. Gonna go ahead and stop sharing so that I can make the highlight on your faces. And we will just go ahead and jump into, I put together just a few common questions that we hear from people that are, maybe looking into doing a program like this, or, just some things that will give a good insight from the experience of those that have been through it. So we'll go ahead and start off with a few of these questions. And again, everyone that's attending, feel free to submit any questions that you have for them in that Q&A feature. I know it's been, varied amounts of time since you've all been through the program. Jason, I know it's been a few years, but I'm sure that this experience is forever ingrained in your memory. Could you all kind of talk about what a typical day in the program looks like, and maybe about how much time outside of the program you spent studying or working on projects, just kind of what life looked like going through it? And these are casual. Anyone that wants to hop on and answer can. If you don't have anything to add to any of them, no pressure here, but we appreciate all your answers.
Yeah, so I guess I'm freshest here. I got a good idea. Day typically starts off with a kickoff activity, so something like a lecture or a retrospective, something to, kind of a retrospective is reflecting on things that have happened in the last week and how you and your team worked on them together. And anyway, so you start off with an activity, a lecture, and then usually it's right into coding. You're working on a new sprint every 2 days in the junior phase. So the content that you're learning is constantly changing and evolving, but it's all foundational, right? Like everything you learn at the beginning is stacked on by the things after it. And so there's always this forward momentum and development as you go through the program. And outside of class, boy, depends on the sprint. Sometimes, you might spend, an hour or two after the class is done, reviewing notes, catching up on stuff. But I mean, there were times where I struggled somewhere and, maybe I spent 3 hours collectively after class, just trying to shore up on the knowledge. But I mean, it really depends on how well you're grappling with stuff and how honest you are with yourself about where you're at. But it's rigorous, it's intense, but it's very, very fun as well.
I'm curious, actually, Eric, to hear your perspective. I don't know how much has changed over the 4 years, but so far it sounds familiar.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. It's what kind of like 12 hours scheduled or 11 hours scheduled days, and then some days you're done after that, and some days you are done even though you want to keep studying, but your like brain is kind of tapped out. And then some days you can't fall asleep, so you just kind of keep going and you keep looking at notes and studying. I think what is probably going to be reiterated in this panel generally is that it's a program that gives back to you what you put into it, and you've kind of blocked off, this chunk of time, these few months of time, and so even thinking about it as like, how much you do in a day is kind of like you're just sort of there. It is a boot camp, and you'll kind of put some other things in your life on hold to do it. But sometimes when you're studying for that the technical assessment, I feel like I was like up a couple hours before the day started, and finished and still working when the day ended. And then there's other days where you kind of get through the day and you're like, wow, I did it and I need to rest. So it does vary, but you're in it, and you'd be amazed at how quickly your body acclimates to just sort of being inside of it.
Yeah, that's all very familiar. And actually to confirm with Robert and Eric too, for the first 6 weeks, was paired programming an essential component, or were you working on your own?
Paired was essential. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were definitely paired
Great.
for those first 2 weeks.
And so I really want to emphasize that, because it was something that was unfamiliar and also just like so important. So the first 6 weeks as a junior through the program, as Robert was saying, that you're working on something new every 2 days, but you're not working on it by yourself. You're always paired with someone else in your cohort, and it teaches you the super valuable skill of like thinking out loud. And that's actually something that you even want to learn how to do so that you can study for the TAA, for the entrance exam, is to think out loud, because there's so much that is difficult to grapple with inside your brain unless you try to put it into words. And so with that, as they've said, super intense 10 weeks. I used to know people who tried to have like a side hustle during that time, and it was just impossible. And they had to grapple with that too. You are essentially asking yourself and the people around you to kind of support you and uphold everything else around you, so that you can get through this, because it is it's a lot to ask. And as Eric said, like the amount that you can put into it is what you receive, and truly, a lot of us were doing those 10 to 12 hour days and came out with a really good set of skills. And then even afterwards, after graduating, like maintaining that was so crucial. And if it weren't for the way the program is structured, that sense of intensity and momentum wouldn't have existed. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I think that was such a great overview of kind of what it looks like to go through it, and like the way that you describe it and the intensity of it, that you get used to, and then luckily can kind of channel that continuous energy into like the job search or a role afterwards. I think is uh, maybe a benefit to putting yourself through kind of that intensity. So yeah, thank you all very much. So I know in all of your intros you kind of talked a little bit about some background and you know choosing to transition and land a new job. I guess if anyone else has anything to expand on, like why you specifically wanted to do a coding boot camp, and maybe what led you to choose this intermediate one, what your experience looked like with, coding on your own, or through anything else before doing the program. I'd just kind of love to hear a little bit more about like your, entry into, doing this program.
I mean, I did a fair amount of research into a number of different boot camps before picking Hack Reactor. The reason being, pretty much everywhere that you read online, Hack Reactor is great at putting out software developers who can churn out work quickly. And it's good work, right? Because that's kind of what you're taught in the program. And that's a really important separation from other ones, just because when you're in the weeds of developing code, you might find yourself leaning towards perfectionism. And in a lot of workflows, that's just not sustainable. Like when you want to get a product out quickly, you can't perfect everything. Hack Reactor helps teach you what the important bits are so that you can focus on those, get something that actually works, and then you can iterate, develop, refactor, refine later. And that's why I did it. As far as transitioning from like the military into coding, something that's really cool about coding for me is it presents developers with the opportunity to take some figment of their imagination, some idea, and turn it into reality that everybody else gets to interact with. And that's a really, really cool thing. I mean, it's, no different than a painter, making a canvas. It's creative, it's personal, and it's a way to interact, touch other people in the world, and have an impact on their lives. So that's very cool.
Yeah, I did CS50, which is Jason was talking about earlier. That was kind of my first crack at sort of a formal education in software, even though it's self-led, and that was great. I think when I started to kind of decide that I wanted to focus a little bit more, or was transitioning, that's when kind of the most, the highly visible Chat GPT as a software engineer kind of was coming out. And it was also when, it was after all the hiring had happened during COVID. And so when there were a lot of layoffs in tech after COVID. And so I was so anxious about this idea of do I even want to try to do this thing? But I think I had kind of informally done as much as I was going to be able to do. And I talked to a friend of mine who went through Reactor and got a job as a QA engineer, quality assurance engineer at Naughty Dog, which is the video game company that made Crash Bandicoot and Last of Us. And so I think just the confirmation that it was possible to go through a boot camp and get a job on the other side of that was really was kind of all I needed to hear, because I think 10 years ago, people were going through boot camps and it felt like being handed jobs. I'm sure that there's a lot more work, but I talked to friends who had to do interviews at jobs 10 years ago, and I'm like, that's the coding question you were asked. You didn't have to know recursive functions inside of trees. It just it's a different landscape, and it makes a program like this in some ways more important, because there's a lot of informal education out there. And so getting something that is a little bit more structured and formalized and very rigorous, and then also has the career services on the other side of it, so that how to not only code confidently, but package yourself as a software engineer, and going out into the job market. That was all stuff that I was never really going to be able to do on my own. So yeah.
I think that the reason why I chose Hack Reactor after all was just because I had realized that I couldn't even create a structure for myself to be self-taught, which people can do. And I appreciated that this program has calendar invites for your entire day. So you always have something to do, including your allotted lunch and dinner time. So having that structure, who knew that someone with ADHD would benefit from that? But it definitely got me to where I am today because of it.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, it kind of seems like, a recurring thing that here is maybe people that are doing some stuff on their own, and then really that structure piece that comes into play can, help keep you in line. And definitely the added support is something that you don't get when you're just looking at online resources. I guess kind of going off of that, I would love if we could talk a little bit more about the support that's provided during the program, especially since we have 3 people that either are or were seers, so that's definitely one of the support elements. I guess maybe Robert, do you want to, since you started your seership, speak on how you're supporting students? And then we have Jared on here. So Jared, I would love if you could also introduce yourself and talk about the support that you provide throughout the program. That would be great.
So as a seer, your focus is on the students. you're really listening to what their needs are, where they're struggling, identifying, where in their thought processes they might be struggling or missing something, and really just being I think more approachable than an instructor, right? Because I was just there, figure that knows a bit more, can maybe explain things in a little bit different way, but really just help facilitate the learning in whatever way is possible. I mean, along with that, you have cohort leads like Jared. The instructors are phenomenal. Depending on your cohort, you also are likely going to be relying on your fellow students to help learn things. But there is definitely a robust system. I never felt at any point in time like if I had a question, I didn't have anywhere to go. In fact, I have several places to go to try to find an answer. So the support system is very, very good through the program.
Awesome. Well, yes, I am Jared, and I am the program lead slash cohort lead for the program. I can attest to that with Robert, as well as Robert was one of my students who is now a seer. Yeah, I'm like your go-to for anything that doesn't have something to do with coding. So I would help out with like the logistics of the program, questions about absences, and personally. I think it's very important that I'm there to launch almost every day. Some days I have meetings, but I launch almost every day with the students during our coffee chat and just kind of make sure that they're taken care of on the social, emotional side of things. So I'm kind of your go-to for logistics, your go-to for like information about the program as well, and pretty much anything that can help you outside of the coding. But I even schedule those one-on-ones as well, sometimes with the instructors to make sure that you are getting the code and assistance that you need as well.
Yeah, I would say it's one of the biggest boons to the program is that it's very much focused on problem solving and developing your problem solving skills. So a lot of the support, as a seer, my job was not to give the answer necessarily, but to point in the direction of how you would solve, not knowing, whether that's debugging in the terminal or like where in documentation you should be looking or just little nudges along the way. And then, yeah, the instructors are super knowledgeable, especially when it comes to JavaScript. So JavaScript is such a just a monster of a language, and there's just so many different tentacles that it has that goes off, and so you can feel very confident about one concept, and then the next day kind of run into a new concept that you're sort of like like yesterday I felt so confident, today I feel less confident, and the instructors are there to kind of not only help assist in your understanding of things, but also kind of let you know that like it's okay, you might not fully understand it right now, but like you're going to do it 30 times by Friday, and so you're going to feel a lot more confident then. So that support is also very helpful. And then I will also reiterate that the career services support at the end of the program is also a different level of support, which is instrumental, I think, in a career sense.
Quick question. Did y'all mention the concept of office hours? Do they still exist? Yeah. I'll note with that. So if my assumption's correct still with like even the junior phase, every Saturday there is a hour-long exam that kind of covers what you've learned the week prior. And in the first exam, I had a hour-long brain fart where I couldn't remember what I had learned, and it was brutal. I submitted my file completely empty, and then I had a discussion with the tech leads, and they decided to put me into a series of like office hours scheduled with seers, and I did that twice a week, and it was so amazing being able to have that time, and then even realizing that you could always ask for time for support. The skill there is that you just need to know what you're asking help on. You can't just say, I need help. You have to say, what is it that you're trying to do? What have you tried already? And what is the result of your attempts, so that you're pushing yourself while getting some guidance from the seers and the leads, because in the end, ideally, as a software engineer, as you will always need help, you'll always need to look up stuff. You'll have developed the ability to ask yourself the questions that a seer is asking you, to get you to your answer. And it was so dope. And I was so glad to be able to apply my teaching skills as a seer to the students as they were going through the same thing that I did.
Also, I just want to piggyback on that idea of like being very articulate in a technical sense, and how important that is, right now for my job, right? Like when I elevate issues with the platform or the code, being able to say like, I tried this, I think that it's this, here you go, that makes people who are paid a lot of money to do this and have very little time to kind of look at what it is that you've done, the more information you can convey is so important inside of a engineering organization. So that is like an incredible skill.
Yeah, that's a great point, Eric, and thank you for sharing that, and thank you all for sharing kind of your outlook on that, and the asking for help piece, and articulating what you need, and knowing that the support is there for you is definitely something that we hear whenever we do any events like this, or speak with the instructors and staff like Jared. So I think that's really great that we have that awesome, well-rounded kind of support in a lot of different areas that people may need help with during the program. We did get a question in that had a few pieces, and one of it was asking about the career support that's provided. So I would really love if you all could maybe kind of speak to what that looked like with them coming into the classroom and meeting with people one-on-one, and maybe even like if you had any takeaways, or like there was something that you had kind of leaned on the career services support for. I think it would just be cool to hear about that.
Yeah, I've been harping on it, so I might as well jump in. I feel like I maybe the most recently have gone through being supported by the career services to then find a position. At the end of the course, the last week of the boot camp, you are sort of in it with career services. And so it's working on your resume, as well as your LinkedIn profile, as well as, kind of building a roadmap for how you are going to start to study your algorithms and your data structures for technical interviews. I had a career services, you get paired with a career services manager, and so I met with mine once a week, and was able to be like, this is what I did, what do you think I should do next? And she would be like, this is what I think you should do next. And so I made sure that my GitHub looks professional. There's just lots of little pieces that can set you apart from other people on the internet who are looking for the same job that you are, who have the same technical skills that you have, possibly, or possibly even more, and also leveraging the professional experience that I had prior to this, so that I could kind of go in and say, this is what I have done, and this is what I know now. And so all of those services I found to be super productive. I think personally, I'm not good at the LinkedIn, professional jargon that feels a little stilted and a little phony to me, but it's very, you're going in to communicate with people who don't know who you are, who want to be assured that you're going to, show up professionally to work every day, right? Especially since a lot of these jobs tend to be remote. I'm entirely remote. So, being able to go in and demonstrate that I am professional and reliable while also having this technical understanding that was all, you know, super bundled up in a very clear and concise way by the career services team.
I'll say just looking at Robert. I'll say that uh one thing I want to like hit on is that I don't know if I had a clear picture of what career services was or career support was going into Hack Reactor, or even like what to assume it would be. And I say that because for anyone here, um, I want to make it clear that career services was I never had an expectation that they would just have all of these jobs available for me to apply to. It was instead like as Eric was saying, giving you sort of the essentials to present yourself as a professional software engineer or technical person, because there is otherwise like uh, an infinite number of ways that one would think like, oh, I need to do this, I need to make a portfolio, I need to make my GitHub look completely professional and beautiful. And I think that career services was just helpful with like narrowing down the fact that you do need a resume that's polished, and you do need to have some presence on LinkedIn to because unfortunately, like a lot of companies just don't have a way of knowing that you exist as a real person unless like you present yourself in some at least minimal effort. Um, but outside of career services, the things that truly helped me a ton was when you graduate, you get access to the Hack Reactor alumni Slack community, and there's still like a lot of people there who post from who graduated 10 plus years ago, and being able to just ask your alum uh, what to expect or what to maybe focus on, or how to approach a company, and then also to just reach out to them and say like, hey, I noticed that your company's hiring. Could you refer me, or could we chat? So helpful, and that's something that I've done every time that I job hunted, which is twice now, and um, man, it was just like uh, again with the idea of ideally not having to do a lot on your own. The job hunt is certainly something that you have to put in the work for, but you can even put in the work to just create a community to support each other and to support you and staying focused on getting the job.
Yeah, I think career services is brilliant because if the rest of the course or program is built around challenging you as an engineer, career services is going to help challenge you to find the job that you want, prepare yourself for the job that you want, because a lot of things that you have to do you might not want to do. Like me, I personally don't like cold calling people on LinkedIn because it feels awkward, performative, forced, whatever. Career services is going to tell you, sure, but a lot of getting a job is who you know, so you have to branch out, right? So they're encouraging you to do things you might not want to do because in the end, it's going to be better for your development. It's going to be better for you getting the job that you want. And all of that is wrapped in this neat little bow of being authentic to yourself, which is brilliant because a lot of, organizations are going to tell you the way to do it without a whole lot of, flex or give. Hack Reactor says, be you. Here's how we can leverage that to get you the job that you want. So it's a very nice support system that's not betraying any of your personal values, which is great.
Ooh, I love that. That little added that was a great little I haven't really I don't know that I've heard that perspective articulated so well, Robert, of like not gonna push you, that this is the only way to do something, knowing that that doesn't work for everyone. And so kind of meeting you where you're at. And I think kind of a lot of what you all touched on is that same kind of theme that was brought up earlier of like you get out of it what you put in ultimately. You're choosing to go through this experience. So what you get out of it really is what you put into it throughout the entire program and certainly after, maybe even more so. So, yeah, thank you all so much. And I know we're kind of getting closer to the end of the time. Before we dip into, I think we had a few audience questions. A lot of what people are probably curious about and what we hear a lot about is like the job search. And it's changed a lot, especially kind of related to the boot camp space over the past few years. But I was just wondering if you could kind of give a synopsis. Maybe this might be more so for Eric and Jason of what your job search looked like after the program, and kind of what the process was for landing your current role, or if, Jason, speak to any kind of job search experiences that you had after, feel free.
Yeah, I can say uh, for the job search, it was basically two parts. One was studying still after graduating. There's still so much to learn. Something that you get exposed to in the first week or two of Hack Reactor is the idea called data structures. And these are concepts that really get drilled so that you can anticipate them in an interview. I still struggled with like understanding them because I didn't take a college course in data structures. So I was still studying that after graduating. And over the course of 3 months, I had laid out for myself like the topic to study and the problems to try to solve for each topic. And at the same time, I was applying for jobs, but more importantly, reaching out to people who worked at those companies, whether they were the recruiters or software engineers on LinkedIn, complete randos. Like I don't know any, I didn't know any software engineers except for my roommate, 4 years ago. And so the consistency there was so crucial of studying and getting in touch with people who can then get me into an interview that I can then apply my studied skills on, and just doing that over and over again. And I can say, I think I had 250 applications submitted, and so dozens of people that I've talked to or reached out to and never got a message back from, but at least putting in the work to get my foot in the door was how after 3 months after graduating, I was able to get my job. And I want to clarify that it's not always going to take 3 months. It can always take longer. And yet, like, that consistency was so important. Knowing full well that I needed to get a job and needed to get my foot somewhere. Yeah, that's what I went through.
Yeah, I think I also, it was pretty soon after my seership was over that I accepted the position. I think I had kind of a pretty kind of applied to as many as I could. I think I was trying to do 5 to 10 a day, and then also reach out on LinkedIn, as well as calling people that I knew or people who knew somebody, friends of friends who had who were engineers, and even just those conversations helped to kind of change how I was thinking about certain projects that I was working on, because it was, I think I started applying and then built a profile, and then or built a portfolio, and then started building kind of little apps and things just to explore like generative AI and how to kind of train them in certain ways and use RAG. And that came from conversations I was having, so that when I finally did get an interview, Code Signal, its bread and butter are these assessments, and I applied to a support engineer role. They sent me an assessment, and I crushed it. I took it very seriously, right? Like I know that it can be hard to tell what to take seriously and what to not take seriously when you're in the job hunt. So I got this assessment, and I was like, what if I spend an hour and a half just taking this like random assessment very seriously? And it turns out that like that turned into a job for me. But then in the interview process, I was able to point to all of this additional information on top of my studies that I had been picking up from having these conversations with other software engineers. And then I also relied very heavily on my career services person to kind of help steer me, because I think that one thing, when you finish the program, you're out there and you're like, should I be studying data structures? And the answer is yes. And it's like, and should I be building my own, like, toy projects? And the answer is yes. And it's like, should I be calling people? Yes. Like, there's a lot of different things, but you don't have to do them all at the exact same time, right? You can be like, this week I'm focusing on this, and then this week I'm focusing on this, and having somebody to bounce that off of was super productive. But yeah, I think I applied to 200 plus positions. There's a lot of different job boards out there that you're going to get access to, as well as kind of ways to reach out and put your best foot forward. The final thing that I'll say is the job market is maybe not what it was 10 years ago, but companies are hiring right now. And I can say that, as somebody who works for a company that helps other companies hire, companies are hiring right now. So I'm not just like making it up. Like, people are hiring. So it's difficult, it's challenging, and it requires that you put effort into it, but it is not impossible.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, like, I mean, it kind of is that the reality of having to really put yourself out there and apply to a lot of things, but it is nice, to hear. Takes resilience, but people are hiring. There are opportunities out there. So yeah, very nice to hear. I know that we are kind of approaching the end, so I want to go into some audience questions. Um, Someone have submitted for this program, do you have to be strong in math? Yes, maybe one person can jump on, or we can all just shake our heads.
Yeah, I'd say there's some like when you do the basic prep, which you should all do. There's like some examples of math problems that or math code that you could and would maybe have to implement, but it's concepts like adding and subtracting. The furthest it goes is absolute values or squares, but you're not doing calculus. And for my 3 years of working, there's only one time where we had to create a calculator, and there's like 3 engineers who were involved in that because it's so confusing. But with that, if there's something that you would more likely need to be good at or be open to, it's just acquiring a technical mind. And coming from a English lit degree background, I can tell you that the creativity that was involved in my past translates to being a technically minded person, because you have to create a narrative of how something goes from a small block to adding blocks together to create a more complex thing. So hopefully that doesn't scare you away from the idea that, sure, this job is technical, but it's not rocket science.
Also, if you're asking that and you do like using math, like your math part, if you're asking that because you like math, the answer is also like, it's logic and stuff. So there's parts of your math brain that will be that are good to use, but you don't need math itself.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a little bit more of that thinking technically, problem solving, and we haven't run it in a little while, but we would run these events called How to Think Like a Software Engineer for those that are maybe interested in doing a program or even deciding if you want to learn software engineering. And so we have a library of previous event recordings. This event recording will be there as well on our Vimeo and YouTube. So I did just toss that Vimeo link in the chat if maybe the person that asked us or anyone is kind of wondering what that looks like. It goes over some of the kind of problem solving skills and the mindset. But yeah, it's not calculus, which is maybe good unless you like that kind of stuff. I know I certainly don't. Alrighty. So next question is kind of about a hot topic right now, which is AI tools. So I guess just kind of wondering your maybe opinions on it, as things like ChatGPT and Copilot evolve. Do you have any advice for, people that are aspiring to learn programming? Do you think that they're,
I do.
yeah.
I have advice. I know we're running out of time, and I want to just jump on this. You're going to use Copilot at the end of it, and that's great, and it's a good tool to learn. You in this program should not use ChatGPT just because you're going to have your entire life to use these AI tools after it, and in more kind of important technical settings. So one thing, I in my job, we spend a lot of time, we are assessment based. And so there's a lot of people who are using AI to kind of surpass it and stuff like that. And your um, job to get a position is you're going to have to try to be better than AI right now. And the only way that and you're never going to really be better than AI in some ways, but reading documentation, knowing where to look and where to find answers is so important. And then it makes the use of AI a supplemental. And I one metaphor that I've been thinking about is like when I moved to Los Angeles, I moved from Chicago, and I grew up in Chicago without Google Maps. And so I can, if you drop me in Chicago, and Chicago's specific, it's on a grid, and so you should be able to find yourself anywhere in Chicago. But if you did that to me in Los Angeles, I've been there for 10 years and I've been using Google Maps for 10 years, and take Google Maps away from me, I can't get anywhere in Los Angeles, right? So like, use that idea for like ChatGPT. If you start using it right now, then like when you don't have it, you're going to be shorthanded. And also in this program, these are not real life situations, right? These are there for your education. And so using AI to kind of, bypass like a contrived situation is doing a disservice to yourself. And so AI is a tool that's there and necessary, and you're going to use it in your future. And it's totally not helpful in your education process because the struggle is really important, because those are the times when you are actually going to remember the work that you've done. So that's my.
Love it. I'm so glad that you also touched on the point. Like, I mentor people as well, and there was a point where AI was getting really big, and everyone was signing up for ChatGPT, and one person was using it during their program, and boy, did that mess them up. And to reemphasize, if you've suddenly already been using ChatGPT for some technical reason, try to wean off of it and prepare to not rely on it going forward, at least for the fact that you're trying to develop a foundation. You can't rely on AI to make the foundation for you because you've not absorbed it yourself. And from there, I don't think that AI is intended to really replace people's jobs as software engineers or as technical people, even if Mark Zuckerberg claims to, because for him, he just needs people to invest in him. But in reality, like AI and ChatGPT should be treated as tools, and tools are only used or have to be used by someone to make them useful. And they're useful, sure, as an employed person or even unemployed, but it's not going to just do its magic on its own. And you have to anticipate that it will make a mistake at some point, and someone technical has to solve that mistake. So no company is going to be saying we're made out of AI completely, right? And the people who have to tell the AI what to do are engineers as well.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say that there's no way it's going to replace people, just because AI or humans, people, we can innovate. Artificial intelligence cannot. It's constrained to its little box, and it's very fancy when you interact with ChatGPT, but ultimately it's just an algorithm. Everything's more or less, predefined. If you have a novel problem, it's not going to come up with a novel solution for you. So having those good foundational skills is just so imperative and critical to being a good software engineer.
Yeah, thank you all. I think that's great, great advice, really, for anyone that's wondering about how it kind of interacts with building the technical skills and using them. So I know that we're kind of at the end of our time, and I just want to be conscious of everyone's time and say thank you all so much for all of the information you provided and the awesome advice that you gave. As I said at the top, this event was recorded, so you'll get the recording in case you want to watch anything back. And then I really just hope that everyone has a fantastic weekend. If you have any lingering questions for us, or maybe things that are a little bit more directed, about maybe admissions process, scholarships, anything like that, I did paste the contact information in the chat here. So go ahead and bookmark it. ChatGPT as a resume. Yeah, I will say for the job search, ChatGPT is very useful for things like that you know, can be a time saver when you're applying to a lot of jobs. But yeah, thank you all so much. You know, attending events like this is a great way to invest in yourself if you're interested in maybe taking on a new career path in 2025. So I hope that everyone has an amazing weekend, and just again, a huge thank you to our alumni panelists. Really appreciate it. Bye, everyone. Nice seeing you all.